Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of The Working Ant with me, your host and coach, Rami Balut. What a pleasure it is to be with you this week. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're in high spirits. And I just hope which way you are starting out this week, in whatever capacity, under whatever circumstances, that you remain engaged in your higher self and your higher purpose, and that you are truly one of conviction that whatever may be happening is indeed happening in your favor. Today's an interesting topic of conversation, one that I take great joy in speaking about, and that is primarily around a quote by Marcus Aurelius from the book Meditations that I continue to use in my day-to-day. This is probably one of the more longer lasting quotes that I have used over the course of my career. And that is, love the discipline you know and let it support you. And once again, love the discipline you know and let it support you. And the reason why this is sort of like lasted, over like the test of time for yours truly is because, it sort of continues to allow you to question, whether or not you indeed do love the discipline that you have come to know, and whether or not you are in fact comfortable with the fact that it is indeed supporting you. And I think this is just a great sort of like, topic of philosophical conversation about your career, where you are now, how you have learned to sort of get into this career, how you may have come to love it or detest it, but nevertheless, if it is actually supporting you in some way, financially, emotionally, whatever it may be, I think it's really important to continue to question this over the course of your career. And I'm going to encourage you to question this right now. And we'll talk about sort of like, hey, how do I sort of leverage this really grandiose quote that Rami claims it to be about loving the discipline that I know and letting it support me? And how does it sort of like play a big role in where I'm at today, my overall happiness, how I feel about myself as a person, my self-efficacy, my self-worth, you name it. This quote has so much to do with so much of that. And here's why. Whether you are sort of like in your mid-level career, towards the later stages of your career life, it's all relative, of course, and how you feel about it. A lot comes with being in a career for a significant amount of time. It's like, you're investing your time into something and you may or may not actually feel that it's going to continue to support you over the course of your career. And here's sort of like where I stand on this. Not too long ago, I had a consultation with a client who had been working on content creation for a very, very long time. She had since joined a finance organization, and she had been doing exceptionally well in that over the past 6-7 years. And over the course of this time, of course, organizationally something had changed with her, and she realized that it's time for me to actually part ways, go my separate ways, do something else, primarily due to the fact that organizationally something had changed with her that was not to her liking, wasn't actually a good experience. And so it came about where she had to question almost everything. Does she sort of make a lateral move into another company in a similar domain? Does she try to work it out in her existing company? Because, being there for so long, there must have been some good times. And, should we leverage back the memories of those good times? Should we, think about potential good times that are ahead of us? How can we actually make the most out of our current situation? Or, question it all, where we make a complete career transition pivot into something else that we may or may not be aligned to aptitude-wise, meaning the skill sets that we may contain and have possessed over the course of time may or may not be relevant to it, but in fact, it may be something that is very, very much aligned to our values that have evolved over time. And I think this is a very, very critical sort of thing to think about. Consider this, how did you come to potentially immerse yourself into your existing career. And for those of you that actually do love your careers, this one's for you. How did you come to actually love what it is that you do? I'm one to believe that you've had moments of love at minimum within your existing career that have allowed you to excel, to reach a point where you are now, where it's actually creating a quality of life that may be consistent with what it is that you aspire to be, or maybe created enough of a quality of life where you're like, I can anchor on this and move on and do, something relatable, but perhaps a little bit different in the future. Coming to understand how we've actually come to love what we've done, I think is one worthy of dissection. So for example, you may have totally fallen in love with your career prior to even getting into your career. You may take yourself back to your early days of your career and you're like, I really, really wanted to do this. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And you fell in love with the idea of what that even looked like prior to even getting in. And so falling in love with this career, getting into it, you may have fallen out of love with it over the course of time, or you may have been those individuals that actually I fell in love with it prior to, and I'm still in love with it now, and I've been able to stay in love with it over the course of all this time. You may have grown to love what you've been doing, and you may have just been in it because it was convenient. It was something you just happened to get into. It may not have been your first choice. And you know what? You've spent enough time with it that you've grown to love the career that you're in right now. And maybe that's a natural kind of love. It's a real kind of love. Or maybe it's a love where you're like, if I spend enough time with anything, I will grow to actually love it. It's just those things that are in my proximity, in my purview. I'll just grow to love this thing over the course of time. You may have really just learned to love what it is that you're what you've actually been doing. And so this is something like you got in it, you're like, what, this may not actually be for me. I'm second guessing. I'm not really sure about, where I'm at, what I'm doing, but you've learned to sort of love it. There are pockets of the work that you do where you're like, what, I've learned to love my job enough to where I know that there are moments where I feel great about it, even though there are moments where I'm like, no, this totally isn't for me, but I've learned to love it. I've learned to love it. I've learned to deal with it. Consider yourself like in a relationship. You've learned to love somebody, someone you may have never seen before, like this blind date. You're like, oh, on paper, absolutely not. But, you've taken the chance, you've got on that date, and you've learned to find things that you've loved about this person. This is sort of like the story of the Samaritans back in the biblical times. I'm not sure if this was from the Old Testament or the New Testament, but somewhere around stories around, or at least from what I've heard that's been passed down to me. And that is, there was these two individuals that passed by a dead horse, a decomposing horse. And one took great interest in this horse. The other was like, what are you kidding me? Of course, I'm going to continue walking down this path. I want nothing to do with this horse. I don't want to look at it. Certainly don't want to smell it. There's a really raunchy stench to this thing. The sight of it is it's completely loathing and disgusting, detesting at minimum. And I'm going to continue walking by it. But the other person just continues to stare at this horse, this decomposing horse, and just smiles. And while the other person is totally baffled why this one person would sit there and just admire this horse, he went up and asked, what on earth are you doing? Why are you still looking at this horse? Why are you here? Just keep walking. This is disgusting. That person responded, well, you know what? I'm just admiring how beautiful the teeth are. And so this is sort of like learning to love something you may or may not have liked whatsoever. It may have been something you have just had to love. You must love it. Because if you didn't completely immerse yourself into loving it and this level of adoration, you may have not been able to succeed at it whatsoever. Imagine for example, you're a surgeon or you're performing a surgery on, on someone's teeth or someone's heart or whatnot. You've got to absolutely immerse yourself into this craft, because if you don't, there is, a life-changing sort of consequence as a result of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, such a dramatic thing, but it may be in a situation that you're in where I have to love this and I have to completely do well in it and immerse myself into it, because if I don't, well, then there's no way in hell I'm going to be successful at it, right? And so there's those relationships we have with work where it's like we must love it. Otherwise, we're never going to be any good at it. There's also these these moments where like we have a desire to love something. It's like, hey, you know what? I want to do this. Like I'm desiring to love what it is that I do. And that may be because of the people that we're actually working with, maybe the proximity of people that we're actually working with, people that we worked with in the past, that we absolutely love, that we got along with, that we trusted, that were supported, that were cheerleading of ours. And we may have said to ourselves, you know what? We love the people there. Not 100% sure about the work and how inspiring it is, but there's a desire for me to love that work based on the fact that, I've actually been around these people for quite some time. And I feel that's actually something worthy of my desire to love something. And you may desire it to the point where you actually grow and do love it, but there's like an actual desire because, hey, you know what? You're not in it for the actual work itself. You're in it actually for the people. And there are those, opportunities where I see them all the time in my practice where like there's this fake love. It's like, I'm just faking loving this because I'm playing the game and I'm just going to do what I got to do and just pretend that I really love what it is that I'm doing until I have the opportunity where I'm like, shoom, I don't. I've just completely, showed a different side of me at work. So that level of like a fake love. And then there's obviously those of us in roles, unfortunately, that are just like, you know what, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to love this. I just, you just don't love it at all. There's just absolutely no possible way. It shows on our face. It shows in the work that we actually do. People question why we're still there. We question why we're still there. No way in hell would we be able to absolutely love this in any form, in any way possible. And that just manifests itself in the quality of the work that we deliver, which gets me to the point of how, we, at least those of us that love the discipline that we know, how we come to love the discipline we know, and how we let that discipline support us. There are many amazing people that talk about mastering a specific skill set. I'm thinking about, for example, the great Robert Greene, and one of my favorite books called Mastery. I'm actually, side note, going to see Robert Greene and Ryan Holiday this coming Friday here in San Francisco. And I'm very, very excited about it. People that I absolutely love. I love these authors, especially Robert Greene and the work that he's actually done. But he has a really, really great book called Mastery. And, many, many authors have books on mastery and mastering the skill set and mastering your craft and how much that actually can do wonders for you when it comes to your career. Of course, in many ways, one must love what he actually does in order for him or her to be successful at it. I think it was Galileo that said, passion is the genesis of genius. If you really truly love what it is that you do, you're more likely to be, passionate about it. Passion obviously leads to a better quality craft. You can immerse yourself. You can master something that you absolutely do love. Of course, some of us actually master things we don't particularly love. But for the most part, those of us that are truly successful in the long run are those that actually love what we actually do. And so, and I'm obviously one of those people and loving what it is that I do as a coach, in leadership development, in personal development, in self-efficacy, in career transition, in alignment. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with seeing my clients living out joyful experiences. It fills my cup. It gives me the greatest joy in seeing people up-level their skill sets and doing something that was already there, but just had to be like service and extract it out and put it to the front of the spotlight. And I can go on and on and on about this subject because I absolutely do love it. But this idea of like mastering things, I think sometimes we can take that a little too far. It makes us feel a little bit like, hey, either we're going to master it or we're not going to master it. Either you love it or you don't. It's like that Mark Anthony hit single, tell me baby girl, cause I need to know, cause I gotta know which way to go sort of thing. Right. I'm probably butchering that hit single, but I think you get what my point here is that, either we love it or we don't love it. And so we have to move on. And if we move on, then we certainly can't master it. If we don't love it, we can't master it. A bunch of things that come to our minds when we're thinking about how we're going to continue to invest in our careers moving forward. And I think it's really, really critical here for us to think about loving the discipline we know and letting it support us, because in order for us to truly love what it is that we do, we have to be able to nourish it. We have to be able to work at it. We have to be able and willing to continuously improve on it, find new ways on how to hone in on these skills, especially for those of us in technology and in engineering. ChatGPT is real. Artificial intelligence is real. Oh my gosh, we may be replaced over time. I don't know. I don't think so, actually. I think in many cases, just like in every point in time in the Industrial Revolution up until this point, it's always new roles, new sets of careers created from new technologies. I don't think there's going to be anything different, by the way. In any case, it's honing in that craft. It's constantly improving on that craft. It's wanting to invest our time in that craft. And I think, Winston Churchill once said something like, if there's something that we continuously think about, we should never give up on that thing. And, and similar to our craft, similar to our skill sets, similar to our careers, I am one to believe that, if we fall in love with what it is that we do, my gosh, how joyful is it for us to continuously actually improve on it, nourish it, grow with it, trust it. Out of all things, trust it, and trust our love in it, that it will continue to support us as we grow with it. And I think, the ones that are actually lucky to discover such a thing are the ones that are going to reap the rewards of it in the future. And so here, what I'm asking you is to consider not necessarily the quote about love what it is that you do, love the discipline that you know, and let it support you, but really understand what kind of love you have for your job, what kind of love you have for your career, what kind of love you have for your relationship with it, and how that's going to actually impact how you're going to interact with it. Immerse yourself in it, intimately get involved in it by learning more about it, by challenging it, by questioning it, by going back to the drawing board and validating why you got into it to begin with. It's no different in a relationship as it is with the career that we actually choose to have. And yes, it is a choice. It is a choice. For most of us in Western societies, it very, very much is a choice. And, I'm one to believe that. I think, we should find love in what it is that we do. If we're unable to, move on from it, maybe it's just a means to an end for many of us. And if that's what it is, and that's fine, I think that should be very explicit and clear in the relationship we have with it amongst ourselves. And I think this level of honesty that we have can actually, bring about much more clarity, set more expectations from us and for us in the future as we continue to engage in whatever field it is we are purporting to profit off of. And, it's things like this that I absolutely love to talk about because, if we can truly find some love in our careers, and for those of you, who are thinking about finding love in hopeless places, yes, I'm one to believe you can find love in a hopeless place. And I have no idea who sings that song, but it is indeed a hit single. And I'll just mention it now for reference that it is in fact possible, and certainly is. That's not something to dismiss. But I think, if you're really going to find true love, find long-term love in your career, and what it is that you're actually doing, you've got to really understand the type of love that you're invested in. And if you can really find a true long-term love in what it is that you do, even if it's in pockets, even if it's just in moments, even if it's with the people that you're interacting with and feeling that you're uninspired by everything else, that counts too. But remember, if you truly are able to love the discipline that you know, well then, of course it's going to support you, and trust that it will. And that's what I have to say for today in this week's episode of The Working Ant. If you like what you're hearing, I'm actually putting a lot of this on video, trying that out on my YouTube channel. It's at Coach Rami. If you just want a flavor of me on video, saying really the exact same things that you're seeing and you're hearing here on our podcast, feel free. Drop me a note. For those of you that already are, through email, through my LinkedIn, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for investing your time with me. Please take care of yourself and of each other. And I will see you next week here on The Working Ant. Bye for now.